they have talked about and proclaimed about establishment of the Jewish state in the region of Palestine in order to go for their homeland territories in the Palestinian region. And in the presumption of that, the Israel launched an attack on the Arab countries which were about to invade Israel, which includes the countries like Egypt. Sitting together, let's say the Israel representative and the Palestinian representative and other Arab representative came in the form of a larger conference, which is the Montevideo Convention of 1933. So 1955 का Bandung Conference or 1961 का Belgrade Conference, there India supported the values of the non-alignment, and that led to the creation of the non-aligned movement. Hello everyone, I am Vishal Sir, and today we are going to discuss a very important topic which is regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict. And this conflict is the global tug of war, and we are also going to see what is the India's stand in this particular regard. Now, why we are discussing this topic right now? Because a few days back, or I could say 2 to 3 days back, in the United Nations General Assembly, a few countries which are considered as a prominent ally of the United States of America, which includes the countries like United Kingdom, which also includes the countries like France, the countries like Canada, Australia, they have given the formal recognition to the state of Palestine. Now, when there has been a rise in the formal recognition for the state of Palestine, it becomes very, very important thing, because generally they stood with the stand of Israel and with not providing the recognition to the state of Palestine. But since that particular recognition is now being provided, how it is going to alter the global balance of power, along with how it is going to shape the India's relation in that particular region, specifically the Arab world and the West Asian region. So we are going to discuss in this particular discussion regarding what it is important from the examination perspective. Because when we talk about this particular issue, from the perspective of the General Studies 1, which is the world history, it is an important topic, because regarding what was the post-World War I, what was happening in the region of the West Asia, from the Balfour Declaration onwards, all these things are important from the part of the General Studies 1 world history topic. Along with that, in the General Studies paper 2, in the international relations, it is also very, very important topic. So entire discussion mein we are going to discuss from the perspective of the examination that what all things are relevant, right? So in this discussion, let's start the first aspect regarding the historical timeline of the conflict, or we can say that how this particular conflict was shaped. Now, when we talk about the shaping of this particular conflict, so in the late 19th century, there was rise of the Zionist movement or the Zionist movement, especially in the region of Europe. So the Jewish people were finding their homeland, and they were claiming their homeland in the region of Palestine, which is the part, or which was the part at that point of time, the Arab territory. And when they were not having any specific permanent home, that Zionist movement was initiated in the region of the Europe. And then the countries of Europe were also supporting this particular movement. This led to the first Zionist Congress in the 1897. And this particular Congress, for the first time, they have talked about and proclaimed about establishment of the Jewish state in the region of Palestine. So this marked the formal beginning of initiation of or the creation of Israel. Now, when this Zionist movement was going on, already there was a rise of consciousness regarding the Jews movement or establishment of the Jewish state, and that eventually was led in the form of, during the time period of World War I. What happened in World War I? The United Kingdom, which was one such victorious country in the World War I, that through the League of Nations, it got the mandate of Palestine, When it got the mandate of Palestine, means United Kingdom got the governing rights of the Palestine region. Now, United Kingdom in the 1917 led declaration of the Balfour or the Balfour Declaration, where they also recognize that they are also going to support the establishment of the Jewish state in the region of Palestine. Now, when United Kingdom declared this in the form of Balfour Declaration, and now roughly in 1922, when they got the mandate of Palestine, that means they are now the governing party of Palestine. So with the United Kingdom ruling in the region of Palestine, now there has been rise of settlement of the Jewish people in the region of Palestine was started. So this led to the migration of people in order to go for their homeland territories in the Palestinian region. So this continued roughly from 1917 till the time period of 1947. So this was already going on. Now, when there is new settlement that was emerging in the region of Palestine, obviously it is going to alter the regional demography, and there were certain movements that were also going on from the side of Arab people who were the resident of Palestine against these particular people who are moving in. But then the colonial power which was there was United Kingdom that suppressed all these kind of movement. Now eventually what happened, that there was World War II. Now World War II from 1939 to 1945, and eventually at the end of World War II there was creation of the United Nations. Now the United Nations was trying to resolve a lot of pending conflict. One such conflict that was there which was related to the Arab-Israel conflict, which was regarding the formation of the state of Israel and the Palestine. Now in 1947, finally, the United Nations proposed a partition plan. Now there was the growing dominance of the Jewish people, and that's why this partition plan was slightly tilted towards the Jewish people. So what this partition plan talked about, that roughly 55% of the territories of Palestine were given to the Israel or the formation of Israel. Roughly 44 to 45% of territory was given for the state of Palestine. Right? And when this particular division was there, do you think that the Arab countries are going to accept this? Because the main contention was that in the Israel, roughly that represents the 30% of population. And when you talk about the land holding that Israeli people or the Jewish people had in that particular region, that was very less, even less than 10%. Now, the Israel accepted this partition plan, but then Arab people or the people of Palestine, they rejected this partition plan. They thought that it is biased towards the region of Israel. It is favoring Israel. And ultimately this has happened that 1948, immediately after this, Israel declared its independence. Israel was claiming the territories which were provided to it under the ambit of the United Nations. But the Arab nations were not happy with this, specifically the region of Palestine. The people, those were there, they were not happy. And in retaliation, the Arab countries launched the war against Israel. Now in 1948, once the Israel declared for its independence, simultaneously the Arab countries launched the war on Israel, and that resulted into the first Arab-Israeli war. That continued for roughly 9 to 10 month time period, and then later on there was an armistice that was signed in 1949, and ultimately through this particular armistice of 1949, what actually had happened, that initially Israel got 55% of territory, but once the Arab countries waged the war against Israel, Israel led to occupying further territories in that particular region, and now which was previously 55%, now after this war it became roughly 77 to 78% of the territory of the Palestine region which were under the occupation of Israel. So this had happened after the 1949 when the armistice was signed. Now after the first Arab-Israeli war, there were certain other conflicts that were emerging because that region was always a hotbed of the conflict. In 1956, another conflict that emerged in that region, that was regarding the Suez Canal issue where the Egypt was involved. So that can be considered as the second Arab-Israeli war. But there in that conflict, to some extent we can say the Israel had to suffer a setback. But that was not the major confrontation that was going on. Now, after this 1949, there were certain minor conflicts, as we have discussed, that were there, but the major conflict emerged in 1967, which was in the form of 6 Days War. So Israel got to know that the Arab countries are going to launch a massive attack on Israel, and in the presumption of that, the Israel launched an attack on the Arab countries which were about to invade Israel, which includes the countries like Egypt, the countries like Syria and Jordan. And when Israel invaded those countries on the presumption, Israel launched multiple attacks. And the territories which were supposed to be the territories of Palestine, which includes the West Bank, the territories like West Bank, the territories like East Jerusalem, the territories like Gaza, even apart from that, the territories of Sinai Peninsula, which is part of the Egypt, that were taken over by which country? Israel. So now, after this particular 6 Day War, you can say whatever remaining territory that were there in the region of Palestine, which were with Palestine, roughly 22%, those territories were also occupied by Israel. Now, the Arab nations were furious. They wanted some kind of opportunity in order to retaliate against Israel. They wanted to take a revenge. And they found this on the day of Yom Kippur, which is considered as a holy day as far as the Jewish calendar is concerned. And in 1973, on the holy day of Yom Kippur, they launched a war against Israel. Again, what happened? They met the same fate because Israeli forces were outnumbering always these particular forces. They were technologically more equipped and they were more agile. And that led to, again, a setback for the Arab nations. And ultimately, after the Yom Kippur War, again the status quo was maintained and Israel got the consolidation on the territory it got in the form of West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, even the Sinai Peninsula, and also the territory of Golan Heights, which it captured from the region of Syria. Right? So after Yom Kippur War, who is appearing to be on the winning side? It was Israel, because Israel had a lot of territories. Now the Arab nation got to know, and mainly the conflict was going on with the country like Egypt. Egypt got to know that Israel is comparatively powerful and it will not be good for the region if we constantly go on fight. So let's try to make certain deal with Israel, and in that particular context, when mediated by the country like the United States, they signed the Camp David Accord. So in 1978, they went for the Camp David Accord, where the United States was there, where there was Egypt and there was Israel. So the Israel, Egypt and the United States were the party of the Camp David Accord, and based upon this particular accord in 1979, on the lines of the Camp David Accord, Israel and Egypt signed a treaty where whatever territories that were annexed from the Egypt that were part of the region of Israel after 1967, those territories like the Sinai Peninsula were given back to Egypt. And in response, Egypt recognized Israel. That means Egypt became one of the first Arab nation in order to recognize Israel. That solidified the hope of Israel. That means now the Arab countries are accepting Israel. Not all the countries, but yes, Egypt has started this particular initiative. Now again, dekho, when this particular acceptance was there, now there were certain countries which were getting anxious that why Egypt has recognized this. And even by this time, there was a organization which was known as the Palestine Liberation Organization, which was formed in 1964 by the Arab League. This particular organization was made as the governing organization for the cause of Palestine. So this organization was fighting for the cause of Palestine. Now after Camp David Accord, Egypt was on comparatively neutral side, that Egypt was recognizing now the Israel, right? Now the Palestine Liberation Organization was in constant conflict with the region of Israel, and mainly this organization was functioning from the regions like, let's say, Jordan or the other Arab nations, and then it was fighting against the Israel and trying to occupy or trying to capture certain region in the territories like West Bank or East Jerusalem or the Gaza region. Right. Now, this Palestine Liberation Organization was fighting for the cause of Palestine, and here the Israel is now gaining more and more control over that particular region. But then eventually what happened, that there was a massive uprising against the Israeli occupation in the Palestinian region that was observed, and that was named as the Palestinian uprising in the form of First Intifada. Intifada is basically the term utilized for depicting the uprising or the popular uprising, right? So from 1987 to 1993, there was First Intifada going on. And the organization which you are hearing now again and again, which was Hamas, which is a violent organization fighting for the cause of Palestine, that was formed after this particular First Intifada. So from 1987 onwards, Hamas also came into the Palestinian picture. So there were two factions that were now created within the Palestine. One became the Fateh section and another became the Hamas faction, right? So these were the political parties and also the militant group that were fighting in the Palestinian region. Now, once these fightings were going on already in the region, obviously many such countries which are dependent on the region for the oil, natural gases and the global stability, that were worried. So the countries were trying to put pressure on these particular countries to go for certain kind of settlement. And that's why this settlement was started in the form of Madrid Peace Conference, which was in 1991, which paved the way for sitting together, let's say the Israel representative and the Palestinian representative and other Arab representative came in the form of a larger conference. Though this particular conference did not resulted into any such major breakthrough, but this is for the first time the leaders came together, leader discussed the issue, but nothing substantial came out of this. But then 2 years later, there were certain secret negotiations that were going on with the country like the United States, and then there was Israel also, and the representative of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, that went into negotiation, and ultimately there were Oslo Peace Accord that was signed. So in the Oslo Peace Accord, we can say for the first time, the PLO recognized or accepted the existence of Israel. And even Israel accepted PLO as the negotiation partner. That means for the Palestinian cause, now the Israel is accepting PLO as the negotiation partner. That particular negotiation should go on. So this was regarding the Oslo Peace Accords. After that, once Oslo Peace Accord were there, these discussions were going on. 1996 maybe there were further development in the form of Oslo to 1995-96 mein. And then eventually when the other factions were getting anxious कि भाई these are going for certain cooperation, ये तो आपस में cooperate कर रहे हैं. So the Hamas got alienated, and then there were certain other militant factions that those got alienated, and they initiated the second Intifada, along with that joined by the PLO itself. So the PLO, which once relinquished its arms, again there were certain factions within the PLO that got involved in the another uprising which was known as the Second Intifada. So the Second Intifada, which continued from 2000 to 2005, that led to another major conflict in that particular region. And then this uprising again got violent and then later on suppressed by Israel. But then Israel thought that it is going to drain a lot of resources. And that's why in 2005, Israel decided that now Israel is demilitarizing Gaza Strip. So Israel demilitarized Gaza, and through 1993 ka Oslo Peace Accord, certain region within the West Bank, East Jerusalem and Gaza were provided for the self-governance also. So basically the peace was achieved, and now once the violent movement again started in the form of Second Intifada, after that Israel realized ki chalo, let's demilitarize that particular Gaza, but we will put the control on the border, we will try to keep that particular region in check, and we will capture the supply route so that if there is any kind of issue, we should be in the position to cut off their supplies also. So this was happening. And then in 2006, there were elections in the Palestinian region. And at this time, Hamas got victorious. And when Hamas got victorious, there was split again in the Hamas and PLO faction. So the Hamas from this point of time was ruling in the region of Gaza, and the PLO were ruling in the region of West Bank. So it was divided between the Hamas and the PLO faction, which was also known as the Fatah faction, which was ruling the West Bank region. Okay? So 2006 onwards, Hamas is controlling the Gaza Strip. Now there were constant issues that were going on in that particular region, but recently in 2023, in the October 2023, there was a massive attack carried out by Palestine, and specifically the Gaza. Hamas ने attack किया on the Israel. There were more than 1200 people, those were killed in the Israel, and apart from that there were many such people took as the hostage. And in the retaliation, Israel, in the form of the Navy, in the form of Air Force, in the form of other armed forces, they invaded the territory of Israel. And right now we are seeing the kind of devastation that the Gaza Strip has faced in this particular region as a retaliatory measure. Okay? So in the October 2023, Hamas attacked Israel, and in retaliation, Israel attacked Hamas. And right now we are seeing whether the Israel's attack on the Qatar in trying to kill the leadership of the Hamas, or whether it was escalated in the form of also Israel and Iran conflict. All these things are intertwined with each other, and that's why this region is again and again in news. So this is basically the timeline, or we can say the historical timeline regarding the emergence of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Any such question surrounding this, you can answer this by having an idea regarding this, and this particular thing gives you a clear idea regarding that how this conflict emerged. Now, after the Oslo Peace Accords, another prominent thing that had happened, one such thing was regarding the agreement between the Israel and recognition of certain territorial control of Palestine. But apart from that, there was also recognition of one authority, which was the Palestinian Authority, which was considered as the ruling authority of the Palestine. So this authority also got the recognition that this is the ruling authority or the executive authority in the region of Palestine. So this is the conflict ka timeline. Now, when we are talking about this particular conflict, why it becomes further important right now? Because recently there has been global recognition shift. The countries which were tied to generally United States now recognizing Palestine in a large number, that says that yes, either the United States is the only country which is trying to block the entry of the Palestine in the United Nations organ, or there have been certain shifts that have been observed in the global governance level. So what had happened? So basically in the 2024 May, Norway, Ireland and Spain recognized Palestine as a state. In 2025, 3 days back, France, UK, Canada, Australia, Portugal, and many other countries in the Europe, Africa, they recognize the state of Palestine. And this number has increased more than 150 now. So when more than 150 countries are recognizing, that means roughly more than 2/3 of the world countries are recognizing any specific region. That shows that yes, this particular region to some extent have the legitimacy also, and that's why it is also leading to the shift in the global governance. Now this is the region we are talking about, that this region is in news. So we can see this is the region which is the Gaza Strip. Now this Gaza Strip is basically a strip of the land which is on one side there is Egypt, on the other side, on this particular side it is the Mediterranean Sea, and on the eastern side it is the Israel, where it is located. Now this was being ruled by the Hamas faction since 2006. This is the territory of the West Bank, which is basically the territory which is being claimed by Palestine, and here in this particular territory there is the situation of the Jerusalem city. Now as per 1947 plan, जो UN ने partition plan दिया था, as per that the Jerusalem has to be an international city where both the parties will have equal claim. So East Jerusalem is being claimed by the Palestine, right? But the Israel is not allowing any such territory to be ceded to this particular region under the Palestine, right? Because of the religious and the other importance, right? So this is the West Bank. Now, when we are talking about that this particular region, here it is Egypt, here it is Jordan, here it is Syria. So these three countries were always having tussle with the Israel, and that led to the conflicts that we had seen already in this particular context. Now, when we are talking about that there is a recognition that has been provided now to the state of Palestine, then there must be certain conditions based upon which the recognition is being provided to the countries, yes or no? So if India is recognized as a nation state by different countries, there should be certain preconditions. Otherwise, to aise in any specific region that can be considered as a state, right? ऐसा तो नहीं होता. So there are certain conditionalities that were being provided by the Montevideo Convention. So states recognition at the international level is being provided through the 1933 का convention था, which is the Montevideo Convention of 1933. Now there are certain basic criteria that particular territory should be fulfilling in order to get the recognition as the state. These are the basic criteria. What is this criteria? There should be permanent population. Now talking about the Palestine have the Arab population, which is the Palestinian population that had settled in that particular region from many years, many decades, many centuries, right? So Palestine fulfills this particular criteria. There should be a defined territory. So as per 1947 का UN partition plan, 45% territory were provided. Even after 1948 or before 1967, we can say before 1967 war, the territories of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza, these were the territories which were available. So there is a defined territory available to the Palestine. So this is the region that they are claiming right now. So before 1967, there was defined territory, and right now also in some patches there was the rule of the Palestinian Authority. There should be government. So in 1993, after the Oslo Accord, there was recognition to the Palestinian Authority. So that Palestinian Authority is the de facto government of this particular region. Right now it is being divided in the form of Fateh faction and also the Gaza Strip, जहां पर Hamas rule करता है. But there is a government available which is in the form of the Palestinian Authority, right? Lastly, capacity to enter into the relation with other states. Up see, here there may be dispute, but since more than 150 states or the sovereign states recognize the existence of Palestine, that means to some extent it has sovereignty also, though formally we cannot say, but yes, it can, or it has the capacity to enter in the relation with the other countries. So this fulfills the criteria also. So in that case, all the criteria which include permanent population, defined territory, government, and the capacity to enter with the other countries in certain agreements, all these things are available with the territory of Palestine. Now when these particular powers are there, what had happened actually, that since the formation of the Palestinian Liberation Organization PLO in 1964, there was recognition to PLO provided by India in 1974, and even the statehood to Palestine that was recognized by India in 1988. That means there has been recognition that was provided since that point of time only. So Palestine was getting the recognition. Now, in the context of United Nations, since 2012, Palestine is a permanent observer. That means it is not a permanent member, but it is a permanent observer. That means it will act as a permanent observer. So the Palestine is permanent observer since 2012, because the major issue is, you might think that if 150 plus country recognize, why it is not becoming the permanent member? Because the United States. Because there are chances, there is certainty that when the resolution to bring Palestine into the UN formal member status, when it will be about to create as a state of Palestine as a UN member, the United States is going to veto. Because in order to become the member of the United Nations, it should be approved by the UNGA, but simultaneously there should not be any kind of veto by the P5 P5 member or the permanent 5 member of the UNSC, and here the chances are very high that the United States is going to veto. That's why it has not become yet the permanent member, but still it is permanent observer since 2012. So this is the status of the Palestine as of now as far as the United Nations is concerned. Now, the more important thing, what is India's position? How it had evolved, how it had changed over a period of time. Now see, you might have already heard that India was a propounder of the non-aligned movement in 1947 onwards. So basically the movement was initially started in 1961, but the non-aligned related things were already going on when India got independence. So 1955 का Bandung conference or 1961 का Belgrade conference, there India supported the values of the non-alignment, and that led to the creation of the non-aligned movement. Now, from 1947, that means from independence to 1980s, India was supporter of Palestine cause. So in that particular case, what India does, India once 1964 में PLO was formed, 1974 में India recognized PLO, and in 1988 India had given the statehood to Palestine. And till this point of time, India was thinking that the Israel as an aggressor, and India was not having any formal diplomatic relations with Israel. So that means this particular time period we can say as the pro-Palestine, because of the India's non-aligned movement wale ideals, and apart from that being a anti-colonial force at that point of time. But what had changed after 1980s, or specifically in the 1990s? There was disintegration of USSR. India wanted a more strategic partners now, and here in the form of Israel, India got a major partner which was supplying the defense technologies, supplying the critical resources, helping us with respect to agriculture, water management, water efficiency, cyber, and a lot of things that were there that Israel started offering to India, and that led to the development of partnership between India and Israel. And here in 1992, India and Israel established the diplomatic relations. So here when they started diplomatic relations, that means formal recognition to the Israel also being provided, and from here India started a dehyphenation. That means always we are not going to take them in one line. We are going to try and ensure that we will deal them on their own merit. So we will try to ensure कि whether Palestine, because we are not leaving the cause of Palestine, we are making sure that the Palestine should also exist, but we are also supporting the Israel. So we were also talking about the two-state solution and dealing both the countries on their own merit. We have not left the Palestine cause, but we started supporting the cause of Israel. And what had changed after 2014? The acceleration in the partnership between India and Israel, simultaneously not leaving the Palestinian cause, because when there was war and the aftermath of war, there were a lot of crises that were going on in that particular region. India supported through the humanitarian effort. India provided the resources and other things like the medical support and all. Yes, so though we can say the dehyphenation is comparatively more pronounced, India supported the resolution in favor of Israel, but yes, we have not left the Palestinian cause. So our policy from the pro-Palestine to the dehyphenation, taking the cause by cause and the scenario by scenario approach, and ultimately going for more the strategic alignment and ensuring the cause-based approach, or we can say the strategic autonomy was made sure in this particular sense. So that's how you can see the change of India's stand over a period of time. Now, why India is balancing this particular region carefully? So for that, we have to understand that the region itself is a complex region. The region is part of the broader West Asia, right? And also we have the country like Israel, which is supporting us with respect to whether it is the stand on Kashmir issue or whether it is the supplying of the defense technology, co-development, co-manufacturing, also supporting us with the agricultural technology, water management, and also at the global fora, Israel is supporting the cause of India. And in that particular case, we have the defense and the strategic ties with Israel that we have to maintain, and in order to ensure that India is carefully managing this particular situation at the global level. Next is the energy security. So India ka energy security ka major parts come from the West Asia, right? So in the Persian Gulf region, there was already right now when the conflict was going on between Israel and Iran, India had to manage this particular conflict very, very carefully, because on one side Israel is a partner, on the other side Iran is also a significant partner from the historical time period. So if India has to ensure the security, for example, oil, natural gas, all these things are majority amount is coming from the West Asian region. In that case, India have to maintain the ties with Israel also, and also along with that, we have to maintain the ties with the West Asian region and the Arab countries. Next is regarding the diaspora. So more than 8.9 million population is residing in that particular region from as an Indian diaspora living in those countries, earning there, getting the employment and sending back the money to India. So as per the World Bank data, India is the largest receiver of the remittances, and the people are sending that money to India also. So the government is also taking benefit of that, and apart from that, the people are also getting the substantial amount of money. And if there is any kind of conflict, don't you think so? This 8.9 million population is going to get suffer, and they will be coming back to India, and then the earning potential might be declined. So in that case, there will be issues. So that's why the stability India also have to maintain in that particular region. Apart from that, lastly, when we talk about the Global South leadership or talking from the perspective of India, like the arranging the Voice of Global South summits, or apart from that, the historical legacy of non-alignment, all these things shows that India have to carefully balance, because there is no binary terms at the global level. It's not like anybody is the permanent friend or permanent enemy. We have to see the situation on the basis of the merit, and that's what India is doing. So Global South leadership, basically India is leading through energy cooperation, through different other cooperation like the sustainable energy, through the other mineral cooperation with these particular countries like the country of West Asia, and along with that, the historical legacy is also there. So these are the things. That's why India is balancing this very, very carefully. Now, what are the challenges that are there in the implementation of the two-state solution? We have discussed that what is the two-state solution. One is the formation of Israel, and then there are certain territories they will be constituting, like for example, Gaza Strip, West Bank, and the East Jerusalem. They will be the part of the Palestinian state, which is also being recognized by more than 150 countries. But what is the issue? First is the settlement expansion. Israel once occupied these particular region, already enhanced the settlement. So the regional demography is one such issue that the Israel has altered to some extent. So regional demography. Now, whether Israel is going to remove that particular population which is settled in that region, answer is as of now no, till the time there is no such external pressure. So when Israel is considering that as a security threat and regional demography is being altered, that's a settlement expansion related issue. So more than 7 lakh population is going to get impacted in this particular case. The refugee right of return, because many such people who were living over here, and once Israel invaded, whether in 1948 or 1967, these population moved either to certain other regions or living in the region of Israel as the refugee. Now, whether they are going to get returned to their home, in returning to their home, there are already those regions occupied by many such other people, maybe from Israel, right? So in that case, what is going to happen? How that particular right to return is going to get secured, and also whether on the security implication Israel is going to accept, that's also in the future. Israel internal Palestine division. We have also talked about that there is a Hamas faction and there is a Fatah faction. These two are fighting for their own cause. Hamas is going completely against Israel, not even recognizing Israel. Fatah is recognizing Israel, and that's why ready to talk. But these groups are also not having any consensus among themselves. So there is no such unified opposition or basically party which is going to claim the region of Palestine. Lastly is the Jerusalem status. So Israel wants to keep the entire Jerusalem, and that's not going to return that when the East Jerusalem is being claimed by Palestine because of again their religious issues. Israel claims their own religious issues, Palestine claim their own religious issues, right? And that's why the Jerusalem is one such thing where, or the place where there is a conflict that is going to remain there, right? So how that particular situation is going to be changed? So what can be the way forward in this particular regard? Because this is a complex issue which is going on since late 19th century, aggravated in 1948 onwards, and then right now also pertaining. So more than 100 years have already been passed. So what is the solution regarding this particular thing? So first, there may be policy measures, because already, whether it is the Madrid Peace Conference or Oslo Accord, already there have been a lot of things that were already done, but nothing substantial have happened because Israel has not accepted those particular terms, and Israel is not ready to talk till the point of time there is no arms related things were shed by that particular authority. But then Hamas faction is going violent against Israel, and that's why achieving a progressive solution is not being achieved. So there has to be a movement beyond symbolism that has to be there. Recognition of the statehood is symbolism. When these countries can put pressure on Israel to come to the discussion table, get settled the boundary on what? On the 1967 war ke pehle, so pre-1967 war ke pehle, whatever territorial settlement was there, if the countries are going to put pressure in that cases, and also from the side of Palestine, there should be relinquishment of any kind of violence. So when this happens, then only there will be movement beyond the symbolism. Next is unified Palestinian governance. So Hamas and Fatah have to decide, they should cooperate, they should give the united stand, and also they should cooperate in order to ensure the independent Palestinian region where all the countries will recognize the Palestine. Lastly, the international accountability. So when the world countries at the international fora like the United Nations are talking about these particular things, they should also talk about that how these things should achieved. So for example, in this particular case, there should be the practical steps that should be talked about, that how these things are going to be achieved. Till this point are not going to achieved, there will be no such permanent solution regarding the Israel and the Palestine issue, right? So we have entirely discussed this issue from the perspective of examination and from the awareness perspective also, because there is no such harm in going to get certain information which is intriguing also and which is going to help you in order to get the general awareness, right? So this was the Israel-Palestine issue which became the global tug of war, and we have also tried to see what is the India's position in order to navigate this complex situation. Though India has moved more towards the Israel in this particular context over a period of time, but we have not shed the support to Palestine. We are supporting in the form of humanitarian aid, but we are also condemning the terror attack whenever these things are happen, including the 2023 October ka terror attack which was put by Hamas on the Israeli territory, right? So do tell me that what is your thinking or the thought process regarding what can be the solution of the Israel-Palestine issue. And if you are a diplomat, how you are going to propose certain kind of solution in this particular regard. So that's it from my side regarding this particular complex topic. I know this topic is somewhat content heavy, but if you get a clear timeline regarding this, if you note down the things that I have discussed, believe me, it is very easy for you, and this will be a kind of cakewalk for you. Okay? So we'll meet again in another most important discussion that we are going to do on a weekly basis very soon, and we'll bring another interesting topic. Thank you, everyone.